So I hope you had fun looking at that data set. So we're just going to run through an example of the answers. So remember, your code might not look exactly the same as mine, and that's okay because everyone has an individual way of writing their code. But as long as you're getting those answers out, that's all that matters. So let's just remind ourselves what our data set is that we're working on. And not in capitals. So our data set contains a set of numbers which are from an experiment that Charles Darwin did on plants. So he's looking at whether cross-fertilisation is better than self-fertilisation for growing the plants. So we've got 15 numbers, and these are the height differences between those two types of plants. It's measured in inches. Well, actually, it's measured in units of 0.125 inches. We won't go into that. It's, a value of the difference is the important thing there. So, first thing we want to do is check what type my list is. Key's kind of in the variable lane here, but it is a list. That's good. And actually, if you look very carefully at it, it is a list of lists because we have these two brackets. So what we want to do is extract this data and give it a sensible variable name. So let's call it plant, and to get it just in a nice format of a list, I'm going to take the 0th element from my list of lists. So that will give us this set of data there, and we'll just check that out and print out our new variable, which has got our data in. Lovely. So that is just a list. And again, that's preserved our raw data. So our raw data is still there in my list. So if we do something horrifying and we need to go back to it, it's still there. We haven't altered it. Next thing we wanted to do was check what type of data structure our plant is. And it's a list again because we don't distinguish between a list of lists and a list because they're all lists. So we want to see what the maximum value is. So we can use the command max, which will give us the maximum value in our list, which is 7.5 times 0.125 inches to get the actual value, if you want to do that. But the value we're looking for is 75. Minimum, command min, for our plant. Oh, how have I done that? I managed to get that into text. Oh, not what I meant to do. Anyway, let's leave that as text and we'll go again in the code window. But if you're interested, that's how you put just a text block in your Google Colab sheet. So the minimum is minus 67.0. We want to know how many are in our list. So that's the len command to tell us the length of our list. And that's 15. Work out the average value of height differences. So we add them all up and divide by the number. So we sum everything that's in plant. And we divide that by how many there are, the len of plant. And an answer of 20.93 recurring. And then we're looking at indexing into this list to pick out a specific value. So we want to know what the height difference in the first index is. Remember, not the 0th, the first. So that's plant and square bracket of 1. And that height difference is minus 67.0. Next thing we're asked to do is look at what type of value it is. So specifically our plant in index 1 is a float. Indeed it is, because it has a decimal point and something after it. Next one we're asked to do is to select a range of indexes that gives two values, any two values. So plant, I'm going to go from 10 to, so I need two values. So I'll get 10 and I want 11, which means we have to go one past 11, remember? So it means I need to go to 12 to get 2 values out. I'm then asking you to calculate the average of these 2 values. So we can do the same again. We take the sum of those 2 values. So if we do sum plant 10 to 12, you can divide by len of plant 10 to 12 if you want, or because we know we've got 2 values, you can divide by 2. Either will give you the same answer there. And we're going to look to see if there's a value of 45 in this list. Is there a plant height difference of 45? So we're going to ask 45 in plant. Oops, put a space there. So that's asking, is the number 45 in plant? And it isn't. So the next thing we're looking at is looking at height difference between the average of the first half and the second half of the numbers. So we've got 15 numbers. You need to choose where to take this split. You can do 7 and then 8, or 8 and then 7. Up to you what you want to do. I'm going to create my first half average, variable name, and I'm going to have that as being the sum of plant 0 to 8. So I'm taking the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm taking the first 8 values. So I need to divide that by 8. So if you've taken the first 7 values, that's fine. Divide this by 7. Let's just print that out so we can see it. Oh, average. Let's spell that correctly. Average. Go. First half average. And we get value of 13. So our second half average is our sum of plant. So remember, our previous value went up to the number 8, so it didn't include the number 8. So we're going to start at 8, and we're just going to go to the end. The 7 of these, so we divide by 7, and print out the answer, print second half average, and that equals 30. And then what we want to know is the average of these 2 halves different to just averaging all 15 in one go. So if we print out the first half average plus the second half average, that gives the total. We divide that by 2. And it gives us 21.5. So remember, when we actually just did the entire average, we got 20.9, which is a better way of doing it than splitting into 2 halves and taking the average of an average, because you lose some fidelity in that data there. It's an interesting thing to do. And the last bit we want to do is to sort this list into ascending order. So we're going to use the sort command, and then print out a new version of plant. And we can see that we're going in numerical order. And we just want to count how many times 8.0 occurs. So remember, we're in float, so we do need to include that 8.0. And there's 1, which indeed is correct. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed your first analysis of real data. Remember, you might have done something subtly different to me in this, but as long as you're getting the same answers, that's all that matters. And ready to move on to the next lesson in here, and then we can find out where to go from there.